Hi everyone, welcome back to the next diecast. In today's video, I'll be showing you and reviewing this 1/18 scale Ferrari F50 made by Maisto. I got this model from Sam's Club for $17, and my parents later ended up paying for it and giving it to me for my birthday. This model is exclusive to Sam's Club for 2023 in this really cool kind of pearlescent white that you see right here. Maisto initially released this particular model in 1995, which is when the real car was released. And they had a top-up version that you see here and a top-down version. And in terms of other budget models of the F50, Barago and Hot Wheels both made their own versions of the car as well in 1/18 scale. I think as far as details go, the Maisto version can be kind of slotted in the middle of the three. And I'll kind of go throughout the video here and talk about the differences between all three of those models. This is the re-released version of the Maisto model, or Maisto depending on how you want to say it, which has a fair bit of improvement, I would say, over the original version from the 90s. And I'll kind of talk about that as I kind of discuss the details of the model throughout the video here. But currently, you can find this model in this white that you see here with the two-tone black and red interior at Sam's Club. But because this model was made for quite some time and it was eventually re-released, finding it on sites such as eBay is actually going to be pretty easy to do. And you can find these Maisto F50s on eBay for usually between $10 or $15 for a loose out-of-the-box version to upwards of $40 or even $50 for a mint in-box version, depending on the condition of the model, the age of the model, and its color as well. Now, the version made by Barago is actually almost identical to the Maisto version because they eventually would share this model that you see here. Barago at one point did have their own version that was released around the same time as the Maisto version was. But when Maisto re-released the model and made some improvements to it, Barago also added the model to their line. Maisto and Barago are actually a part of the same company. They're under the Maisto group. And the Hot Wheels version was kind of independent from those other two models. So that's just some clarification right there. But the F50 was introduced in 1995, and only 349 units will be built between that year and 1997. And it's widely considered, I think, one of the most iconic Ferraris of the 1990s and in the latter portion of the 20th century in general. And as far as details go, I think Maisto did a great job with the model, but there are some aspects that can be improved here and there. So we'll go ahead and take a look at the details of the model. We'll start up here with the front. I think Maisto really did capture the overall look and shape of this car quite well. This is a difficult car, I think, to model because it does have such unique shapes to it and geometry in general. But Maisto, I think, did do a great job in that sense, with just capturing the overall look and shape of the car as a whole. In the front here, you will see that Maisto did do a good job with all the lights. You have the headlights up here, which do have these separately cast kind of bulbs and lenses on the inside, as you can see there. And the insides are also painted white because the real car did have kind of the body color paint going on behind the main lens housings for the lights. And Maisto actually does put on separately cast turn signals, as you see right here. And yeah, there are pegs in them. There's actually one peg in the middle of each one. But I don't think that's a big deal because Maisto could have just painted these on and called it a day. But I do like how they put them on as separately cast plastic pieces. And then you'll see down here for the lower grille that it does have a perforated mesh, which is a very cool touch. And you have these separately cast chrome badge on there too, which looks very well done. So you have the Ferrari badge on the grille that's done in chrome and a separately cast piece, as I just said. Looks great. And then you have the second badge up here, which is nicely embossed on the car. The paint quality on the model, I would say, is fantastic. One thing that really makes this newer version stand out from the older version from the 90s is the paint job. Maisto, when they were first starting out, didn't really have the best paint jobs on their models, which is, understandable, I guess, considering that they were just starting out at that point. But in recent years, Maisto really has improved vastly on the quality of the paint on their models, and you certainly see that with models such as this one that were initially released in the 90s, took some time off, and then were re-released in the late 2000s in the case of this one here. But on here, the metallic white paint looks fantastic. It's nice and smooth throughout the car, and even on the plastic portions of the model, because yes, that roof is actually made out of plastic. The paint does match quite well with the metal portions of the car. If this were an older version of the model, you would probably have some, like rough areas and orange peel and whatnot. But because this is the newer release of the model, the paint is pretty much flawless. Maisto, I think, did a great job in that sense, for sure. Taking a look next at the side of the model, you do see that Maisto did do an excellent job with these wheels, which the F50 did have these unique rims that you see here. You can see that Maisto captured them quite well, and you actually do have the Ferrari badge kind of molded in the middle of each of the wheels. And the badges are actually kind of 3D looking. They aren't just, stickers or painted on. They're actually molded into the plastic. The version made by Brago, in terms of the older version, that just had these kind of black pegs, because they just made the axle go through the whole wheel, and they didn't bother to cover it up with anything. So that really didn't look that great. And the wheels on the Hot Wheels version, I would say, are the best out of the 3 models, but the Maisto one, I think they did an excellent job with, nonetheless. And you actually do get spinning brake discs with the wheels, although no brake calipers, which is odd to say. The Hot Wheels version obviously has both the brake disc and the brake caliper. The Braga version doesn't have either, I don't think, but on the Maisto version, you actually do get the brake disc, and Maisto did do a good job with those. And of course, you do have full steering on the model and suspension as well. Then on the side, you get 2 different badges. You have the Ferrari shield up here on the hood, which is nicely embossed on there. And then you have the Pininfarina badge down here as well, which is also embossed on there. Kind of hard to read, but the real inscription was pretty small on the real car. And then you have this kind of black stripe going down the whole length of the model. I believe the F50 on all versions had that stripe. I don't know if that's the right term or not, but at least as far as photos I've seen, it seems like all or most of them did have that stripe. And I think it does create a nice kind of accent on the side of the car. And Maisto also did a good job with these intakes you see on the sides here. And I did forget to mention that on the hood, you also have these kind of what people call nostrils. And those do have grills inside them. They're just very hard to see. And you'll see that they are actually made of the textured mesh that you see, or the perforated mesh, I should say, that you see on the front grille. So they did a great job in that sense, I would say, for sure. Nice sturdy side mirrors as well. They seem like they're really thin, but they actually seem to be very sturdy. I, of course, wouldn't pick up the model with it for obvious reasons, but I think as far as the build quality goes, Maisto did an excellent job with those. You see back here, this nice rear wing, which is actually integrated into the metalwork. I thought for a while that this was a separately cast plastic piece or something, but it's actually integrated into the bodywork of the car. That does make it kind of heavy back here, but I do like to see that for sure. Taking a look at the back, the engine cover looks awesome. You have all the different vents in there and the clear glass. You can see right into the engine, which looks very well done, and I'll get to that soon. On the back, you have the Ferrari inscription up here, which is unfortunately just a sticker, and I was kind of surprised to see that Maisto kept this as a sticker. I think on the original release from the 1990s, all the badges that I was talking about were stickers, or most of them were at least. But then for newer releases of original Maisto models, a lot of times they will, I guess, convert, I should say, the sticker badges to painted on badges. But they skipped out on the one back here. I don't think it's a big deal because you can't really see it from certain angles at all, especially with the wing back here. But it would have been nice for Maisto to have maybe painted that on instead of keeping it as a sticker, like the original version of the model had. But of course they do, I think, make up for that with this really awesome looking Ferrari badge on this rear grille, which is a 3-dimensional piece and looks very well done. And speaking of the grille, that is also perforated mesh. The real F50's rear grille has almost like a glass-like look to it because of the way that the mesh is. Maisto, or I don't think any of the budget brands really captured the rear grille quite well, but I think Maisto did do a decent job with it, especially considering that it is actual perforated mesh. So that does look good, even though it doesn't necessarily look like the real grille that the real car would have. But I think Maisto did a solid job back there, nonetheless. And then, of course, Maisto also did a great job with these taillights, the iconic round lights that the real car had. And I don't really see any pegs in these either. You can kind of see it a little bit on like the reverse lights a slight bit, but Maisto did a good job of kind of hiding that touch back there. And then you have these exhaust pipes down here too, which are done in chrome, and the F50 license plate, which is also a nice touch. In terms of opening features of the model, you do have an opening front trunk, or frunk as some people like to call it, which opens up like so. And you actually do get a removable piece of luggage, which is a really cool thing to have. You just kind of pull it out like so. It's almost like hooked on there. You pull it out and you can actually put it right next to the model like that. When I have this up on the shelf, I have it like that because it looks cool. This is actually just half a piece of luggage because you see back here, they didn't finish the back part. But that's only because they had to, I guess, put it inside the car or fasten it in the trunk in some way. So they just decided to finish the front part, but not the back part. But not a big deal. The fact that they have this in there to begin with and that you can take it out, I think, is very cool. Just don't let people see this side of it, I guess, when you have it up on the shelf. But the Barago version does not have the luggage, and I don't think the Hot Wheels version does either. Barago, they put in some, I think, chrome details where the fitted luggage would be. And granted, in the Maisto trunk, you do see some other details in here. There are a few different wires going on back here. And you do have these two fans in the front there as well. I think a little bit more detailing would have definitely been nice, and having kind of, I think, more coloration going on. But I think the real trunk in the real car was very sparse and didn't have much going on in the first place. And then to put this back, you just have to kind of find the hole where like the hook is and kind of just push it back in place like so. And this won't close fully, I don't think, unless you have it kind of in there properly. So we'll see if I did it right. Yep, all good. The engine detail of the model is also very well done. Of course, to see that, you do have the opening rear cover back here. The engine, I think, is a really awesome touch of this particular model. Back in the 90s, Maisto really was focusing a lot on the detailing of the engines of their model cars, and this is certainly an example of that right here. Many different components going on. You can see all the way down in the bottom of the car, all different wires and hoses and whatnot. You even have the metal springs right here. Just they did an incredible job, I think, in terms of a budget model. And the re-releases engine, which is what this model is, I think is nearly identical to the engine of the original version. They might have improved a little bit here and there with, certain colors, I guess, and whatnot. But aside from that, Maisto kept all the really good detailing that you saw on the original version with this newer version. And speaking of the original version, these wheel arches were not painted, but on the newer version, they are painted, as is the underside of the rear cover back here. And it looks really well done. And another kind of neat touch back here is that you have these two prop rods that you can hold up the cover with. You have to kind of pull them out like so. There's a little hole back here. You have to have this open up kind of all the way. And just kind of let the rod catch this hole, I guess, in place. And they're hooked on with these little tabs too. So you have to kind of pull it up like so. Or you have to kind of push down and then pull up. These prop rods are a bit fragile, and if you do get an older version, they're going to be missing a lot of times because they're so fragile. So unfortunately, these are the same exact prop rods that the older version of the model had, but at least they're still on there. As long as you're careful when you're putting them up and down, because this one's actually bending a slight bit, even though I've only used it like a few times. As long as you're careful, once again, you won't have that big of an issue. And it does look cool when you have the cover opened up like that and you have the model up on the shelf like so. Super, super cool. But yeah, the engine detailing, incredible, especially for a model that was originally released in the 1990s. I just wish these prop rods were a little bit easier to both use, and you have less of a fear of breaking them or snapping them. But again, as long as you're careful and don't use them too much, you should be fine. And putting them back is kind of a chore too. You have to kind of match it up with the tab. You have to kind of bend it like I'm doing now and then kind of slide it back into place. I'm not really a fan of these, to be honest. But although the prop rods are a bit tough to use, the engine detailing and the rest of the detail back here is very well done, as I already said. The interior detailing on the model, I would say, is well done as well. Of course, you do have the opening doors. Now, the Barago version does not have the vent windows that you see here. I also forgot to say that. The interior detailing on all three models that I'm talking about, I think the Maisto version, once again, kind of fits in the middle. The Barago version, I think, has the best detailing, and the Hot Wheels version has the least amount of detailing, which is kind of ironic. But the Maisto version seems to fit in the middle, according to various pictures and videos I've seen of the three different models online. But the interior detailing on this F50, I would say, is very well done. There isn't really a whole lot going on in the real car's interior to begin with, but what Maisto does put in here, I think they did a great job with. You have kind of a nice texture going on with the dashboard, and the F50 inscription in silver there looks great. And you have the molded in vents in the center there. And Maisto did a great job with the look and shape of the steering wheel as well, with an almost 3D looking Ferrari badge kind of in the middle of that. You also get separately cast on window cranks, as you'll see on that driver's door, and kind of a better look here at the passenger side door. Cool touch, I would say, and it almost seems like you can operate them, which is a cool touch too. And as far as the door panels go, since I'm already talking about the window cranks, not a whole lot to really talk about or say. There is a nice texture that kind of matches the texture on the dashboard. Again, there wasn't really a whole lot to talk about or see on the interior of the real car in the first place, because it was from 1995. So, and you know, Ferrari was not putting a lot of luxury features in their cars back then. The pedals are decently done. They're actually mounted to the floor and stick up, kind of an interesting touch that the real car had too. They're done in chrome, but they're still kind of hard to see because it's very dark down there. But Maisto, I think, did a decent job with those as well. There are 3 switches on this side of the steering wheel. The Braga version, I think, has better looking switches because it seems like they're almost like a 3-dimensional separately cast plastic piece. But on the Maisto version, they're just kind of molded in place on the dashboard. But regardless, I think they look okay on the Maisto version. The detailing on the seats is very well done as well. They have a nice kind of two-tone look to them, and they actually have 2 different textures going on too. The red inserts, I guess we'll call them, kind of have a more smooth texture and kind of a more glossy finish, whereas the rest of the seats have kind of a more rough texture to them. And Maisto does mold the Ferrari logos in the headrest, which look very cool. So I think Maisto did a good job with the interior there. Not really any differences between the interior of the current release that you see here and the original release, but I think both are quite well done. And Maisto also did a good job with the rear view mirror. It has this kind of weird shape to it, and the real car does have that odd shape because they had to make it a certain shape to see out the back window, which is very small. You can't even see the rear view mirror through this window because it's so narrow. But Ferrari apparently made this rear view mirror kind of a weird melted looking shape to allow the driver to see better out the back. And Maisto captured that well, I think. And as far as the undercarriage goes, not really anything to say. It's all kind of covered in paneling like you would see on the real vehicle. So I think Maisto as a whole did a great job with this model here. And I do like how they have kind of an improved version of it that they released in recent years. Maisto has done that in the past for several of their models, and I always like to see that because a lot of their popular models that they were making in the 90s have been re-released in the 2000s and improved upon, mainly in terms of the paintwork and just the overall build quality as a whole. But I think if you're looking for a model of the F50 to add to your collection and don't want to spend a whole lot, but still want a really well-done model, I think the Maisto version is definitely the F50 model to get. And yeah, there are some areas that can be improved on for sure. But I think as a whole, Maisto did do a good job with capturing the real beauty and uniqueness of the F50 with this 1/18 scale replica here. So if you can find the model for a good price, I would say I'm definitely get it, especially if you're a fan of collecting models of Ferraris or of supercars. So feel free to comment down below with your thoughts on the model. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel. Thanks for watching.